Welcome to the Casting Friendship Podcast. This is a Dungeons and Dragons and Feelings podcast. My name is Melanie,
And I'm Kara.
and we are KaraMel, and we are joined today with our very good friend Dane.
Hello, everybody.
Dane plays Killian in Dion Rising.
Quite excited to be with you ladies today. Should be a fun conversation we're going to have.
I'm
Thank
excited.
you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm super excited for your Canadian spin on things.
Everything's hockey based. Let's go.
Speaking of hockey, today we're talking about, starting to talk about combat versus roleplay heavy Dungeons and Dragons games. So we invited you on because that feels, it feels like right up your alley.
Is the hockey the combat? Is it?
Yeah.
Is that what it was about?
Oh, yeah, okay. That was the segue.
Gotcha. Expert transition right there.
Flawless.
We've already established we are professionals.
I'd like to cast friends.
Roll for charisma. Gosh, Dane, you know how we should really start this podcast every time? It's a Dungeons and Dragons and Feelings podcast, so we should have started with Dane, how are you?
Oh,
how are you feeling?
Yeah, how are you feeling? How was your day?
How's my day? Pretty okay. It's a little bit stressful at work. Yeah, I deal with a lot of people that I'm gonna see for the rest of my life, so that's gonna be a fun situation, at least until I retire, or until they kick the bucket. One of the two. That's kind of how my profession is, unfortunately.
Which I don't know about Canada, but in America we don't get to retire anymore, so that could be the rest of your life.
It's a dream that's still quite far out, but cut back to me in 20 more years, and then we'll see how I'm faring. Right. But no, I'm doing okay. I was a little bit low energy before I came to this, where I sat down and we all started chatting, but now I'm going to be up for another hour and a half, probably.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who ends up laying in bed staring at the ceiling every time we do anything for Nights at D20. It wires me up, man. It's like a cup of coffee. Melanie, how are you feeling?
Yeah, how you doing?
How do you feel?
I think I'm okay. Work's been really busy. After we finish recording, I actually have a lot of work I have to do. I gotta tackle a lot. Yeah, so just trying to find time in the day. It's hard.
Yeah. Same now.
And how about you, Kara? How's things?
Oh, kind of the same. I got really used to being unemployed. Now I'm employed in a job that I'm really loving. So yeah, that feels good. I like the people I work with, so that's a relief, if anything. But yeah, tired. Definitely tired. I was up far too late last night. Woke up way too early this morning, and
yeah,
got to get back to it. So yeah, a little, I don't know, maybe the feeling is a feeling of overwhelm or adjustment, change, uncomfortable change that will be fine in the long run.
Yeah, it's always hard to adjust to a shifting schedule and responsibilities.
Yeah, I just wanted to play games and get paid for it for my whole life, but apparently that's not how life works.
Well,
whatever.
Can't all be Bobby.
I can't just opt out of capitalism. Jeez. Golly. But I'm glad that we're all here and we're all surviving, if not thriving.
Somewhat thriving.
So yeah, Dane, what's your preference? Do you like combat? Do you like roleplay? Do you love both?
Well, are you asking as a player or dungeon master? Because I definitely feel like those are two very different sides of the coin there.
Both.
Oh, okay. Well, I think like as a player, everyone comes in with the idea that my character's gonna do some super cool stuff. Like I'm gonna cut off the dragon's head. I'm gonna single-handedly take down the army. And then you roll a 1, and your dreams are dashed immediately. Um, and as a dungeon master, it can be difficult to run a balanced combat, and especially as things get higher leveled. I've run into that in my own campaigns where it's like these guys have spells that just shut down everything, throw whatever I want at them, and then it's just like one spell. Oh, well, there goes my cool monster that I made for them, gone in one turn. Um, so, and even as a player versus a dungeon master, when dealing with combat, I feel like the players will have a lot more downtime. Like the DM, you got so many cogs turning, so many things on the go that you're kind of balance out. Where as a player, you can just focus on what am I going to do next, and how does it play with all the other party members. So it's definitely a lot different on either side of the table, whatever you're playing on. But like Melanie, I don't know. You've never done any dungeon mastering. I'm assuming.
I have
Um,
not.
yeah. So like strictly as a player, like what do you think goes on behind the scenes as
Oh
for a dungeon
no!
master?
You want me to guess?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what you think.
Oh no!
Solid question. I want to hear this
Oh
answer.
gosh. I think there's probably a lot of tracking, like tracking initiative, maybe remembering the things that you've improved that might come up later, trying to guide the group while maintaining some sort of free will for them to feel like they have an endless world to explore. I feel like that might be a delicate balance. I feel like knowing when to jump in to kind of segue the party along, when the role play starts to slow down. I think that's probably what would be challenging for me is striking that balance.
hmm And Kara, I don't know about you with the games that you've run. Are you the type that likes to have some, I guess, like meaningful combat, like not just combat for combat's sake,
Hmm.
or do you like to have it kind of be like a poignant encounter?
Yeah, I'll be the first to say like combat is not my like favorite part of Dungeons and Dragons. I don't hate combat. I know that shit's fun and that's what we like build our characters for so that they can kick ass and take names. But when as a DM when I use combat, yeah, I want it to most of the time mean something. That's not to say I won't like throw you all at some children while you're chasing a cat and make that combat and it means like next to nothing except that it's a challenge for the players. That's like a little bit different than what they may have been challenged with in the past. So yeah, I'd say I don't think I have ever had combat for combat's sake. I don't think I've ever not had it connected to the story in some way, even if it's just a way for a character to show a certain part of their personality, if that makes sense.
So does that mean that you would have trouble running just like a pure dungeon crawl?
I think I would. I really think I would. We talked a lot last time about how, like, I'm like a character and story driven DM. Like, I don't like
Mm-hmm.
playing with people who have like they have to have like 8 throwaway characters because they're ready to
Yeah.
die every third session. I know that that's a fun way to play and it's how a lot of people prefer to play, but I just don't think that's my style. So I think I would run out of motivation and I'd run out of energy really fast because yeah, everything you listed, Melanie, and like what you think DMs do during combat, that's all very true. And it is like one of the more like I don't want to say tedious, but like draining, I guess, parts of planning a D&D session is making sure I'm like really ready for a combat encounter. So if I just had combat after combat after combat, I don't know that I like have the mental capacity to do all of it. I have to have a break and time for someone else to take the driver's seat.
Yeah, and it does take a large chunk of time to run these combats. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially as you get into higher levels. Even in our session we did yesterday, like I'm pretty sure that combat took an hour.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
two enemies that we fought, right?
Yeah.
So, and as things get higher leveled, it's usually higher stakes, which means stronger types of enemies that are the hard balance to find between just a big old punching bag with full of hit points and an actual villain that has abilities that is thematic to the world. And I personally like to run my games with that in mind. Like, I do want combats to be thematic. I want them to be, to matter, not just like wolves come out. Rawr, oh, fun, good times. Um, but yeah, it is a delicate balance to have all that. And um heavy homebrew for pretty much every type of monster that I make, because the the monster manual just ain't cutting it. Sorry.
Yeah, that's something I haven't done. I haven't homebrewed monsters or changed monsters out of what's in the monster manual. I don't think ever. But again, that's because like the mechanics aren't my strong suit. So I already have enough trouble making sure I know their vulnerabilities, I know their conditions that they can put in. Like that in itself is hard enough, nonetheless not having something right there on the stats page.
Mm-hmm. And Melanie, did you like what do you like are you do you enjoy combats, or is it kind of more you prefer like the role play aspect of things?
I think I can see the benefits of both. I would say that I do lean towards role play, but I think each facet is touching on two different sides of who we are as players. I feel like the role play, you're really trying to dive deeper into who the character is, what their motivations are, what they would do. Whereas I feel like for combat, that's less tapping into the character and more tapping into the player, right? You're using your player as an avatar to navigate certain mechanics, and you're trying to choose which spells would help you in a certain scenario. And I think sometimes even it may be hard for us to differentiate between player and character, especially in combat, because if you happen to know a vulnerability of an enemy, do you use the mechanic that you know is going to defeat the enemy, or do you pretend you're ignorant and you just keep blasting whatever you've been doing the past few turns? And then I also think for combat, what's interesting, I think sometimes it's more of a puzzle. I think that's why a lot of people really love puzzles, is because they're exercising that part of their brain and they're just leaning into the fact that, okay, maybe I'm not my character anymore. I'm just me, the player, solving a puzzle.
It's me, the player that can't solve this third grade level puzzle.
Exactly.
That I
Yeah.
spent half an hour on it. I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Can't
touched
wait for
on that.
that.
We touched on that a little bit last week. And it's funny that you talk about like that you prefer role play and like digging further into your character, because of course I think about like last night's Dion Rising episode 9, and you in particular, but all of our players are so good at role playing during combat, which is not something I've experienced with most of my other Dungeons and Dragons groups. Like to the point where last night like Seraphina was like blasting off spells and then like hiding behind bookshelves to like help birth her dragon. Like, and like you're all so good at juggling both things at the same time. It's fun to play with because I go in thinking it's just going to be combat. They're going to be thinking like strategically. They're just going to be trying to beat me. But I forget to take into account that you're all so good at doing what your character would do. I don't think a lot of you metagame very often, which again, last night, like several of our players had just talked about basilisks and how to like use like basilisk venom to unpetrify someone. And I did not know they had just had that conversation, but I threw basilisks at you guys, and they during the break like were like, is it metagaming if we know this thing because we just talked about it, like we just know this? And I was like, you're gonna have to roll for it. So yeah, you can try to metagame, but me as a DM, I can say like, your character wouldn't know that, so they're gonna have to roll a medicine check for me to allow this to happen, unless it's something that they would just naturally do, which is not often the case.
Yeah, and like Melanie, kind of like you said, it is that balance between the organic nature of role play that just kind of comes out when you're just having conversations and navigating the world versus combat time. It's almost like that switch changes in your head where it's like, all right, dice rolls, best decisions, what do I do? But kind of to your point, Kara, is that we all are really great at weaving that organic role play into how we play our characters and how our characters would, function in combat. So I think we all do a really great job doing that, and it definitely helps with the immersion because with combat, it can at times be a really big slog to go through. Like it's just a slow pace, and it's like just playing a board game at that point, right? Moving tokens, rolling dice, adding numbers. That's roll. That's just classic Monopoly. We're playing Monopoly. But when we are actually able to weave our characters into the game and into the combat, it does make it flow a lot better. Shows off a lot more of our characters. Like I kind of feel as though my character Killian, it kind of shines more in combat because that's how he's built. So I try to make him do cool stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's also part of the flavor. What's it called? Oh, the best role play moments always come off of a failure, never off of success.
Yeah, we talked last episode. Dane, did you watch last episode before I keep like referencing? 'Cause if you did not watch, that's okay, but I'll explain more.
You can explain more. I'll listen still.
Yeah, we talked about Melanie and I talked about how she complimented me because I'm good at like making failure fun, right? And I said, well, all of our party, like I'm not the only one who does that. You all make failure so fun. You role play off a nat 1 as often as you role play off of, if not more often than you role play when you roll a nat 20. I think you each do it. Like you all take the moment of like, this is so embarrassing. Like I just rolled a 1. My character is gonna do X, Y, and Z now, instead of just saying it's a nat 1. That's my turn. You all almost always make that such a funny character moment. And even if it's not a funny character moment, it's like you play it, you tell us what your character would do in this failure. And I love that.
Yeah, and Melanie, maybe you can kind of speak to this, but like whenever you are rolling a die to do an ability check or to do something, you have a thought in mind, like you have in mind what you're gonna do, right? Like like, oh, when I succeed at this, Killian's gonna do this, Seraphia's gonna do this, and then as soon as you fail, it is that cool improv. Like, what do I gotta do now? Oh gosh, how do I turn this around? How do I make it either comical or make it fun, make it interesting, because it is like that right in the moment, first gut instinct. I don't know. Do you kind of feel that way when you're playing Serafina?
I think I do. Another thing that happens, I feel like Kara throws like softballs at us all the time to help us roleplay, which makes it so much easier for me to tap into the character. So I think as I'm trying to embody Serafina more and more, I think the experiences that we go through have helped to form her like a stronger image of her in my mind. So I don't know how quickly I'm really responding. I would like to come to a point where it's more instinct like you're talking about. I try my best.
Okay, can I point out? I feel like at a point in our last session, something like the things happened in there. I feel like at one point when Ados was like confronting you, you almost had like a little mini like panic attack? Like you didn't know how to respond. You're just like,
I
just
did
deal
not
with it
know.
later.
I did not know. Yeah, I think my initial reaction is to punt the moment. I think I naturally try to shy away from it if I'm able to. But I think I will say I think it's hard to get away with that because of our group, and I will try not to do that.
See, you're a moment punter, while
Yeah.
Royal is a moment just
Grab it and
receiver,
run
where
it.
he just
Yeah.
runs just full on right into it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
consequences be damned.
Yeah. I think that's true.
I understand American football. This all makes sense to me. No, truly. And yet, like, when we talk about this, I think, like, but isn't that just becoming Seraphina's, like, MO? Like, is
Just,
that
like,
is that
avoidant.
Melanie panicking and being avoidant and punting it down the line? Or is it Seraphina is, like, unwilling to accept reality at this moment? Maybe that's a character thing. And it kind of works with her backstory a little bit, I think. So I'm not complaining that that's your natural inclination. I think it kind of works in character.
Yeah, I think part of it is just avoiding the conflict that I feel is gonna happen, and also just the secrets that I know I'm supposed to be trying to keep.
I think no matter how hard you try, your personality of Melanie is going to come out in your character, because
Mhm.
like we're not method actors. We're not just I'm not walking around
Yeah.
with a whip yet.
Yet.
Soon I will. But like all our own little personality quirks come out, regardless of if I'm playing a lion character. Like a little bit
Mhm.
of just Royal's personality is going to come out. Same with Robin's personality. Same with your personality. Same with JP's. Everyone, like little nuggets of their personality are going to shine through at one point or another. It's really hard to just completely take yourself out of the equation, because at the end of the day it's you. It's you playing
Mhm.
this character, whether it's a extension of some of the maybe some of the traits you maybe wish you had, or maybe some traits that you're not so proud of that are on full display.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Dark Down was the most authentic and real I've ever been.
That's just your
That's
personality.
that's who
Just
I am under the cute little face. I am sharp human teeth, hunchback, half Smeagol, half Gollum creature.
Well, you really covered up well on stream.
Thank you. Thank you. All I want is to rip pages out of books and throw them into the sewer. No, but like truly, that's a good point. We talked about this a little bit last time too, like that I want to know a whole lot about how much of a person is in their character. And I like to see when the person shines through the character, like when the character mask falls off and the person is now playing in the game. I think that's very fun and interesting when I see Melanie playing and not Seraphina. When I see Melanie panicking because her dragon egg is hatching and not Seraphina, who knew she was carrying her around a dragon egg the whole time. When I see that both of these women are unprepared for what's happening, I'm like, yes, I've done my job. I've cut deep.
I still think of the physics of how she just carried around that egg in her skirts, just like comfortably walked around with it. That was just
Her new character art, I put her in this like giant wide cape to accommodate.
Yeah. There's a lot of boning in there.
Lots of boning. It's like very much a maternity dress.
Now it's gonna act like a playpen for.
Oh gods. Yeah. I don't know. Combat. I know that like D&D kind of started as like a combat dungeon crawl, roleplay by picking up a sword and just like fighting monsters, feeling tough, feeling strong, feeling powerful. I don't know. I feel like it's evolved into something more. I mean, for me, it has evolved, and I like literally in the rules, it has more rules directly regarding roleplay and directly regarding like non-combat encounters. So as much as I like try and be like, there's no wrong way to play D&D, I think that if you're playing 5e, especially 2024, if you're not role playing, I don't know. I don't think you're playing it right.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I do feel like it can be quite intimidating though for newer dungeon masters that feel like they have to have everything planned out. Um, when I first kind of dipped my toes into being a dungeon master, I thought I had to have so much planned out. And then now I scroll across my Instagram and I see like the memes of it's like, oh, new dungeon masters. It's like they're reading a textbook, they're doing all this stuff, and then experienced dungeon masters like, I wrote like one page. That's okay. Let's go. We're ready to play. And now I'm like, I'm that guy because that's
that
how
was
I feel.
that was me last night. I planned the combat. I kind of knew what y'all were gonna do next, and that was the extent of the planning. I think last night was the session I planned the least or practiced for the least, and it ended up being maybe one of our best sessions yet. Besides the one where Seraphine had to jump over that chasm like 20 times. But like you can't plan like the best sessions for D&D. And I know Bobby talks about that a lot. Like there is such a thing as over planning.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've had this moment, Melanie, in any games that you've played, or played in. Like I find, and at least as a dungeon master, some of the best times, like I know I'm doing my job as a dungeon master when I can just be quiet for like 20 minutes, and my players are just riffing off of each other and just kind of poking fun. Like it's like their own little family, right? Like, have you had that in any games that you've played?
I don't think so. I think usually when I played Dungeons and Dragons before this group, it was just a group of my friends, and we would mostly use it as time to spend with each other as friends, right? And I think our role play was pretty light. It was just a thin veneer that we had to navigate little fun adventures together and laugh and joke. And I don't think we had this really deep level of character development. And I think in those moments, it's really just about cracking jokes, like inside jokes with each other, and just having it's almost like a board game night, but you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
And I think coming into here, it's really, really different, and I get to explore a different look at Dungeons and Dragons that I've always wanted to explore. And it's really, I think it's definitely taking me out of my element, but it feels good to grow.
That's so interesting. Like, yeah, I have most of my home games are like exactly what you're talking about. Like, they're really almost like a board game night. They're a little more structured because everybody respects, like, the DM put some time into making this game. So it's not like everybody's like taking constant breaks or anything, but like it's so silly. It's so chaotic. There's like, it's very low stakes. Like, even if someone's about to die, like, no one gets like really like the way we all gasp when like one of us gets hurt in this game. And those are like two very different things. Like I keep comparing everything that we're talking about to Dion Rising, but like really the majority of the games are like the home games you and I have, where it's a bunch of our closest friends literally sitting in the same room together and eating snacks and riffing and making inside jokes and like going off on tangents or groups of 2 or 3. And that's all like super valuable. That's all, that's as important to me as what we're doing here with Knights of D20 is.
Yeah, and I think playing online, it feels more emotionally satisfying to have the kind of campaign that we're in now with the characters that we have now, because when you're online, it's hard to have that connection with your friends in a very casual board game night. Like, you're not sharing food, you're not having side conversations. It's very hard to have a side conversation in an online room because there can only be one conversation in the room, right?
Yeah.
So you can't have a private moment. You're just there's a lot of it is lost online. But I feel like when contrast to what we're doing now in Dion Rising, when everybody is trying to lose themselves in their character in the campaign in the moment, I feel like it's much more intense. And what I kind of wonder what it would be like if we were playing in person. Would we be less intentional about trying to stay in character and trying to be that character? I don't know.
I'm sure we would. I'm sure we would go from like actors playing serious characters. I think it would just turn into like silly people doing bits. Like I think we would really be into the bits. Like I think we would go hard into the silliness.
Yeah.
I think that it'd be very hard for us to be serious in a in-person game because I think you're right. It would devolve into all the side conversations and like it would be like if you mixed our Discord chats with our games, our sessions. We would have to have a whole separate conversation for memes in real life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Melly, what's been your longest campaign? How long, like, what's been like the longest time, whether it's in person or online?
Probably just a couple of months. They've all been very short.
And
very
is that
short-lived.
To like completion?
Like start.
No.
No one finishes.
We're very unsatisfied.
This is not very specific fantasies.
But have you ever like completely finished a campaign before?
No, we've never finished a campaign. So I would love to take a storyline from beginning to end and experience completion, as you would say.
Well, we all want to experience
Wouldn't we all?
completion.
We all want to experience completion with our friends.
And it's really that time commitment, right? Like, and I think and I think it's the respect for everyone's time that we're investing into this, versus something where it's a casual play, right? Like casual, you're not gonna really care about my character that I made. Like, hell, I barely care about the character I made. But when, we put into the work that we have for these characters, speaking about it with Kara, developing relationships with the other characters in the party, all that kind of stuff. It really, and that's what turns it from more fun and lighthearted to that serious tone where we are worried about people making death saving throws and stuff like that, because we're all worried as not just as like characters in the game, but as like players, to say like, how is this going to impact us, running the game? How's it going to impact the story going forward? Like things have to change, and I think that, much like in life, that is a driving force for a lot of people's motivations, like that, either that fear of something changing and they don't want it to, or they kind of embrace it and like forge ahead through that kind of change. So like I've only finished one Dungeons and Dragons campaign ever in my life. Every other time, and I've really only played campaigns online. I've never had the opportunity to play in person. Um, it's the online is a scary place because people can just disappear at a moment's notice, and then what do you do?
Yeah, you never
When
hear
it's your
from them
friends, you
again.
can be like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Let's get over here, let's play. But yeah, it's an interesting mix between like online and live play for sure.
Yeah.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna agree. Like, I have never been in a game. I've never played in a game or DM'd a game yet that was done to completion. And most of the time, like, only one of my games has fallen apart so far, so that's lucky. All of them are still ongoing. And the one that fell apart was because, like, people had children. Like, what are you supposed to do? What are you gonna do? And, you know, life happens.
Those fools.
Those fools. Why have children when you can have pretend children? I don't have to pay taxes on my D&D kids.
My little dragon baby that I birthed myself.
You went through labor last episode. Oh. We're all like aunts and uncles now. I'll never get over Ados yelling, "What the fuck?"
That was beautifully executed.
What a heartwarming moment.
Yeah, John Paul really carried that moment. That was really great.
He killed it. Okay, what were you going to say, Melanie?
Oh, I was going to also just say, with friends, I think Dane was talking about how when you're playing online, it's easy to just abandon a game. I think with friends, it's similar in that it's easy to just say, "Oh, I'll just see you next time," or "We'll just reschedule next week." And because you're such good friends, you see each other in other contexts, you don't prioritize the story and the character and the campaign. So I feel like that's a different kind of challenge with just similar effects.
Yeah, like if we Dion Rising managed to miss like a couple sessions, like that's all that we have tying us together, really. I mean, we don't, at this point we're all friends. I'm sure we would all bother each other until the day we die. But like if any of us disappear, it's gone, it's over. Whereas in real life, like I don't have to worry like if we have to take a couple months off, because I can still bother you 3 months from now when all of our schedules are back to normal or whatever. So it's much easier to not prioritize it with my home games. Whereas with us, I'm like, no, this is a hard calendar block, because if it's not, everything falls apart. Like not just the game, but like all of our whole social life we've built up online here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how far we can take it, to be honest. Like with you, I think it's obviously it's a scary endeavor, and it will take time to kind of build everything out. But I'm quite happy to see where we can take something like this.
We've come this far. Even just tonight, I was just like remembering that it's been months since we all, did our auditions and got this group together, and we've come a long way since then, it feels like. And that, like, I get a lot of pride in that. I'm like, even if it fell apart tomorrow, I'd still feel satisfied. I wouldn't feel satisfied, but I'd still be like proud of what we managed to accomplish thus far. And it doesn't seem to be falling apart anytime soon. So
you really want that completion. That's what
I know.
want.
Don't worry. I'm gonna bring every one of us to completion. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kara.
You're welcome. And that's on having a pansexual DM. I'm a selfless lover. What can I say? No, but I don't know. I love playing, and we talk a lot, and like the whole reason we kind of, I think, started this podcast was because like prioritizing playtime is important to all of us as individual people, and it can be like very easily taken for granted when you just have like a home D&D game that's essentially like board game night, and people don't like stop and smell the roses, I think, because it just feels mundane. It's just friends hanging out. It's almost like having a small party. But they don't realize like all the different things that we get out of silly little game nights with our friends, especially when they're a regularly scheduled part of our lives. There's something to be said for like even just what happens in your brain before you've ever gotten to the night that you're playing. But the way I like get a little rush when like the next date is set and I'm like, ooh, Monday is coming or whatever, like that feels good to know that I have something to look forward to. And it's playful, and it has no bearing on real life consequences. It's just we're all gonna get to sit down and like be silly.
Yeah, and I wonder if having a home game with your friends it might be even harder to tap into role play if the other players at the table are not doing the same thing. And especially if it's something you've been doing for a while, it might just feel silly to suddenly have a really intense character moment because it seems jarring, right? And so I think coming in with people who prioritize that aspect allows me to try to hone into a piece of myself that I haven't really explored a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, when you don't feel like the odd man out, or you don't feel like you're the one
Yeah.
trying too hard.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
everybody's trying hard, it looks like no one is, and then we all get to like actually relax, except we're not relaxed. We actually get to like amp up a little bit if everybody else is also amping up a little bit and not trying to play it cool or not trying to. Yeah, if everybody's improving and being silly, it's easier for you to be improving and silly.
Yeah, it's definitely that table environment that allows you to really just kind of embrace things and let yourself have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's a game. We're here to have fun. And sometimes fun is those super serious moments that you didn't think were going to happen, and they make those kind of lasting memories for you. And that's might be something that your friends talk about, in a year's time when something cool happened at the table. But that's if you can get them all to the table, because we, scheduling the true big bad at the end of the game.
Truly.
But I think that's for another podcast, though. That's another episode.
That's another episode. I have never. So speaking of like different like ways to play, I've never played in a campaign that wasn't like story driven. Like forget like combat versus role play. I've never played in a game that was like sandbox style, where it's like someone just like drops your characters into a world and says like there's no like end goal. Like I've always played in games that had a big bad evil end of game character, or had like some progression that like was sort of supposed to happen per the DM. I'm usually the DM, so of course that's how I make my games, is story driven. But even in the very few games that I've gotten to play in, they're all, story driven adventures as opposed to here's a world, just go out and hunt monsters. In roleplay, but you can't like defeat anything in the end. You can defeat more in all the things, but there's no one thing that you can overcome for your character's story to have a nice little bow tied at the end. Have either of you gotten to play in like a sandbox campaign ever?
I don't know how many people would actually enjoy like a game like that. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but
I know they exist. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I like a kind of like like sandbox world. You can kind of go where you want, but there is that story element to it. I mean, I don't know if it's like in a way, like a narratively driven railroady kind of like edging them towards certain directions with the illusion of choice. That's always the fun part.
Edging them to completion. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So, but I've never played in one that's completely open. Like I said, I've only finished one major like campaign, and all like any sort of published campaigns out there have that goal with them. Like there's no published like I guess like Wizards of the Coast stuff that doesn't have that goal at the end of it. Like the campaign that I played through was Storm King's Thunder. So we went from like 1 to like level 12 or 13, something like that. But there was always the goal of we got to deal with these giants, and we'd go into a certain city and things would happen, maybe not related to the giants, and that's like a nice little breath of fresh air. But then we gotta go kill these giants because something's happening. So I've never played in one that's just been a completely open kind of game. Heck, I wouldn't even like. You gotta. I feel like you'd have to have a really strong backstory, like role play kind of character to just get plopped somewhere and be like, "This is my guy living life."
Or it would
da,
like have
da.
to be like a dungeon crawl campaign, right? Only like not always in a dungeon. It would just have to be like you have to just be okay with your character never growing or not having an arc.
Yeah,
Just literally leveling up, but no personality change or challenge to their self.
But I think like, but that's kind of once again it always alludes back to like the player's story. I guess
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's different strokes for different folks, I suppose. But um, I think everyone wants their character to be the hero, right? It's not like I don't want to be the townsperson down the street there, and that's it. Like I gotta go till the fields. Oh, all right, let's go have some fun tilling, milking the cows and stuff. Like no, that ain't it. Um, the story driven campaigns I definitely think are the most engaging and the most fun for people, and you can make your character however you want to really fit that, or have it align with your character, I guess, in another way. Because with like Dion Rising, we don't necessarily know the end game really. Like kind of we're just all put together for right now, so it's kind of like an open sandbox for the most part. Like we got little bits of thread to kind of follow up on, but for right now, it's kind of pretty much open for the most part.
Yeah.
Unless I walk somewhere and there's invisible wall because Kara hasn't designed that part yet.
I'm just Truman showing all of you. It's just all an illusion. There are threads, quote unquote. There's one thread.
Yeah.
There's one rope.
What about you, Melanie? What do you?
I have played dungeon crawl like sessions. A lot of the old school revival Dungeons and Dragons are very much like this, where you create multiple characters, like Kara said. You have backup characters because the idea is that the encounter is going to be very, very grindy. And the memorable moments that happen are not character moments, for example. So the funniest thing that has happened to a session during one of these games is the first move that one of my friends made was they touched a doorknob to open it and they died just right away. That's just the first move. And I feel like we reference that all the time. And I think the satisfaction of going through the dungeon crawl is the one that we had done was it was this metal like horror themed dungeon, right? So everything was extremely grotesque and disturbing and creepy. And I think the intention is for you to just feel the vibes, the evil, sinister vibes of this place that you've walked into, this feeling that you're trapped here, the fact that you have 5 characters that you're not going to make it out alive. It's that impending and inevitable doom that is coming towards you. And walking through and slowly uncovering clues as to why this place exists. What does it mean that someone built a place like this? And you're slowly just peeling away layers of a mystery of of this huge thing that's happening. It is inevitable. There's nothing you can do. You're extremely vulnerable and you're just traveling through.
That sounds incredible.
That's the feeling.
Oh my
right?
God.
There's no character development. It's just you feeling really creeped out the whole time.
You're just a character in a horror movie,
Exactly. And you are not going to make it.
That's incredible. I've never heard of anything like that. I feel I must reconsider my whole DM perspective.
Just every monster has human teeth. Nightmare fuel.
Yeah,
You
like
all
80s. Go
you
ahead.
all made the mistake of telling me what grosses you out. Oh, that's really, really cool. I don't know. I need time to process that, what that must be like to play. Because it's so sandboxy, but there is like an end goal, sort of. I mean, there's a mystery to unravel.
Exactly.
So there's motivation.
Exactly. The fun is not developing your character or leveling up, really. The fun is discovering and experiencing this setting, right? It's a way for you to absorb the setting.
And do you think like those, I guess those two things we just talked about, is there a way to like bring them together? So, because like you said, like the horror aspect is that you could die at any moment, and I suppose that is kind of the same thing in like a story-driven game. However, I guess one is that you don't care as much if your character dies versus you really care if your character dies, especially if they die in a very unheroic way. Which kind of like loops back to like that poignant combat because no one wants their characters to die to a group of goblins or anything like that, right? They want to die fighting the dragon or fight the big bad at the end or whatever it might be versus like that kind of funhouse of horrors there where every turn a doorknob kills you. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if there is a way to kind of meld those kind of things together, unless you were just like a masochist who wrote a story for every character that you put through this place.
I feel like it's really hard because the characters that we have, we want to preserve them so carefully. I think it's hard to feel that vulnerability in actuality because we want to progress and explore the growth of our character, the emotional plot points, the beats that we want to hit. I feel like it is a challenging balance to have both.
I don't know. I feel like Zada's trying to off himself at every turn with every decision that he makes.
He's like literally jumping off roofs every episode. What am I supposed to do? I can only keep this line alive for so long.
Like he got turned to. He may or may not have gotten turned to stone. For those that haven't watched yet.
Keep up with Dion Rising, people. Watch it on your way to work. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think that there's like no value in like a character dying or like being prepared for your character to die. Except for the fact that like if you're playing in a campaign like Dion Rising where we put like literal hours into developing these characters, and like us as people, we have a lot of pride in the work we've put in and we don't want to just see it go down the drain. Not that like a character's death has to go down the drain. It can mean something, but again, you don't want to just get eaten by random wolves after putting in that many hours of work. That's so unsatisfying and could easily like make something like Dion Rising fall apart because it's also like we have kind of a time constraint. Like we're a live show. We're doing this as an actual play. It's not just like us at stake, but like we have people who are like also invested. And that's very different than like if my home game character who is like based off of Dolly Parton dies. like that was silly in the first place. I didn't put in the same amount of work. None of my like fellow players have put in the same amount of emotional energy. So I don't know. I guess I'm lucky enough as a DM. I haven't had to like deal with a player dying yet or like perma dying. I've had people die and be brought back in campaigns, but I don't know. I'm sure it depends on I guess it depends on the player and the group.
Yeah, I mean, I've been running my own campaign for like well, it's coming on 2 years actually. And Anytime I bring it up, like, what happens if someone dies? They're like, we're ending the game. It's done. No,
It's
we
over.
can't go on. We can't go on without them. I'm like, oh, okay. No pressure. It's like, don't make bad decisions.
Yeah. I'm like, as a DM, I'm like, well, I don't want any of you to die, but I can't help it if any of you do stupid stuff all the time and the dice aren't on your side. That's not up to me. I may be God, but nature exists.
Yeah, and any of us. Yeah, we know who any of us is.
The lion. The damn cat. Who's down to like 3 lives at this point.
Yeah, for real.
We should have a tracker on screen.
We should. I mean, that's what happens when you're in the tank. You take the most hits.
That's what
I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder if maybe something we could explore is taking the characters that we've developed through a one-shot to explore a different setting. Maybe that would be an interesting endeavor.
Ooh, something darker or something way lighter. Like take all of your trauma and put it in Candyland.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be very cool. Yeah, we have lots of we have big aspirations to do like one shots to where I'm not the DM, I get to play a character, or like we do like a Sailor Moon one shot or a Pokemon one shot or like something else, but it'd be very fun to put our actual characters into just this whole other world that that has no context for them. That'd be fascinating to play and fun.
Kara, how many characters have you made that you've played as that you've shoehorned into your stories as a DM?
Good question. None of my player characters have guest starred as NPCs. However, my NPCs have crossed universes.
Okay. All right.
You all have met 1 or 2 NPCs that are in 1 or 2 of my long-running home games.
I see.
Yeah, I do have some favorites I go back to because they're like fan favorites. They're crowd pleasers.
Will you reveal who they are? Or one? How about one?
Yeah, okay, Hattie. Hattie always tends to be the ever-suffering but lovely wife of a funny barkeep.
Interesting. Does that say something about you?
I don't know. Maybe I'm Hattie. Maybe Hattie is my self-insert. I've never thought about that, but she could be. When y'all asked her, like, hey, is city government bad? And she was like, let me tell you. That was that. Okay, when I joked about when I joked about like Darkdown being my most authentic self, no, Hattie in that rant was my most authentic self. I think. Oh no, I just now realized that though.
Yeah, you were talking about before how like characters they it's no longer them, it's just the player. That was you.
That was me. You guys asked me that question and I said, oh no, here we go.
All of Kara's NPCs are just little bits of her personality. Hattie's the anti-establishment one.
Yes. Hattie's like the middle-class woman who is like in a financially stable situation but knows how easily it can slip into chaos.
The single mom who works too hard, who loves her kids and never stops.
Yeah, maybe a little. Wow, okay, I didn't realize Hattie was my self-insert. That changes things for me. My husband doesn't own a bar, though, so that's fine. Oh, geez, what about you? Do you have any go-tos? Any favorite NPCs? Or PCs that you've put into other games?
I definitely have been more so with like my long-standing campaign. Like when I first started my game called Crimson Skies, I was coming off of the tail end of a DM, an online DM, like ghosting us after like a few months. So I was very unfulfilled. And I brought that character over as kind of like one of the first NPCs that the characters met, and kind of just wove him into the story, because I played him as like he was a monk type character, but I wove him into essentially the this one faction that are like a collective of monks. So I kind of like wove him into that, and now I'm thinking of bringing another character in that I played, from like in the Storm King's Thunder. He's actually a little goblin character, and I'm thinking of bringing him over into the campaign. Um, and he should be fun because at this point in the game, anything monster like creature has been bad news for people, but he's kind of like uh, he's a very strong little goblin. Let me put it that way. Don't want to really mess with him. He enjoys killing things, which is,
Be
which can
feisty.
be. He's very feisty. He's very feisty. But yeah, so I do like kind of bringing over that unused material that I desperately wanted to make work, and just folding it into the story to make it, it doesn't have to be a carbon copy of that character, but just like the aesthetic, the general vibe of that character, I like to shoehorn them right into the story. That makes it make sense at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I do have a lot of like places and storylines and concepts that I reuse. Many of which will eventually be folded into Dion Rising, so I'm not going to spoil all of it, but like things like themed restaurants, or like a specific kind of festival, or like a weird little tribe of people in the woods. Like all of these things are like stuff I've written and gotten to use in little bits here and there in other campaigns, but then I'm like, I'm definitely going to like milk the hell out of this thing that I wrote because I love it.
Okay, so it's like an archetype for you that you can revisit easily. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good DM tip.
Yeah. I have like a whole note in my phone, like a mile long, of it's just called like D&D ideas, and it's filled with things like, I'm going to just open it up and read you some of these stupid things that I'm sure I'll use in some D&D game at some point in my life.
For any dungeon masters listening, steal everything. Just steal it and make it work.
Yeah, take all my ideas. No TM here. It's all open concept. Okay, so there's one idea that I have, and it's not fully fleshed out, but it's medieval NASCAR.
And
it's
so
like,
tell me about that.
I don't know. So it's like carriage racing, or like steeplechase or something. But it's like artificers and mages. So like no animals involved, just like they take like a basic cart and do some magic or some artificer nonsense to race. But like the concept itself is less about the sport, it's more about the fan base. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like southern, like Florida, like swamp people are really into this, like people bet on it, like people are losing money because they have a gambling problem. Or like there's like sponsorships happening, like so there's a thing. I have that. I have one of my notes in this list is the birds are working for the bourgeoisie. That's all I wrote. These are all things I like wake up in the night and like sit up in a cold sweat and have to put it in this note. Space semi-truckers. I don't know.
Wait, there's a game called Galaxy Trucker.
What?
Yes.
I'm too late. The very first thing in this list is Drag Queen Grim Reaper.
Ooh.
Right? Hot.
Yum.
Like, she's like, hey, girl, I gotta, like, take you to the abyss now, but you're serving. Slay.
Yeah.
I
actually did a drag show in my campaign.
Incredible.
It was a whole competition. Because one of my characters is a drag queen barbarian.
Love that. One of my campaigns right now, somehow, the party has not 2, not 3, but 4 separate bags of beans.
Wow.
I don't know how it happened. It just kept happening. They just kept finding bags of beans. I'm the DM. I should control how many bags of beans exist.
When in doubt, bag of beans.
Bag of beans. And they love it. They love it. This last session that we had this past weekend was chaos because one of them pulled out their bag of beans and I said, how do I always forget about the bags of beans?
Oh, these are magic beans?
Yeah, they're magic beans. Yeah, it's random. They throw out a bean. They roll a d100. There's a table. The table tells me what happens. It's like the wild magic, sort of. Only this bag of beans, the bean turned into 12 pink frogs because she had to roll a d12 to see how many pink frogs came out of this bean. She rolled a 12, naturally. And then the thing was that if someone touched a pink frog, the frog turned into a random monster. The table didn't specify if the monster was friendly or not.
Oh no!
So then I rolled just a 50-50 chance of whether they were friendly to the party or against the party. And so then there were 12 other random monsters, all the way up to like CR10.
Jeez.
Yeah, they were fighting some nonsense. It got real chaotic real fast. And they were in a 12 by 2 grid room. Like, not obviously 12 feet by 2 feet, but like 10 feet by 120 feet. So it was a mess. And it was fun. It was great. We spent way too long on combat. And that's Dungeons and Dragons, baby. Roll with the punches when someone has a bag of beans. I love this game.
So many random things can happen. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And like, okay, yeah, bringing it back around to the topic at hand, which I feel is going to just have to be the like subtext of every episode we have. I guess I like crunchy D&D when the players are willing to roleplay during combat. Not just willing, but able to roleplay and do combat at the same time. And B, when combat can get weird and when I have to like improv. Like, I expected that particular combat instance to be super simple. They were supposed to fight 4 skeletons and they ended up fighting 12 monsters instead. Random monsters that I rolled for. And that ended up being one of the most fun combat encounters because I got to improvise during the combat instead of being the person who has the script and has the plan that I spent hours preparing for and memorizing. Instead, I got to like throw that out the window and just say, all right, fuck it. I guess this is how we're doing this now. So yeah, I guess combat, I'm going to have to rethink my stance on combat versus roleplay game styles.
Well, I think it does obviously have its place in the game, and I just think it's how the players make it work, right? Like when you can make it like really seamless, like when you really know your character and like what they can do, their whole kit, and you don't have to like sit there and just kind of twiddle your thumbs and think about what you can do. Like if you just know like this person's turn is over, you go in, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, like run in and describe how you're going to do it and do all this kind of stuff and make it just flow really quickly. Where things get chunky and clunky is when people are like you can be unsure of what to do, but like don't know what their characters can do. Like it's one thing to really kind of like you got to know your character like the back of your hand. Once again, it's like imagine yourself in that situation. You know what you're able to do as a person, as a character. If I see a bear, I am running that way immediately. I'm not like sitting there. Let me weigh my options here as this bear charges at me. I am running as fast as I can. So as long as like that happens, and I think it's particularly for our Dion Rising because we are doing it as entertainment channel, right? Like I think even more so, combat and Dungeons and Dragons, at least watching other people do it is you might as well watch paint dry because it's not the most exciting thing to watch. People come for the role play of it, right? Like that's what people want. They want the character engagement. They want the funny, random things that happen. And typically in combat, you have almost an air of like predictability in certain ways. Like, you know, the characters are going to fight this monster. You don't know if they're going to hit them or not, but at the end of the day, one side's going down. Where, you know, we have a cat chase on the roof, and who knows what's going to happen. Oh, the cat's got dysentery. You know, it's just it's this epic diarrhea from this cat, and it's just, and that's like the funnier bits where it's like, you know, up and monsters down, cleaned my hands. All right, onto role play.
Yeah, you're so right. Like any Joe Schmo with enough time on their hands can learn how to like min-max a character, can learn how to like cheese every combat encounter. And we are supposed to be entertaining. That would be like the least entertaining D&D real play if just like if it was just about how well each player could kick ass in combat. Like that would get so boring so fast. As a DM,
Yeah.
I would hate that. I'd be like, what? How am I supposed to make combat hard enough if you're all just like learning every single trick in the book?
Yeah.
To make combat as easy as possible for you. That's boring. I want I want to see the players get challenged, and I want to see characters that are different and unique than any other D&D actual play or D&D themed media.
Yeah, and that's like one reason why I switched over to the 2024 Paladin. Mainly because like the old Paladin, it's like dump everything, absolutely everything into your smites and don't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to explore the other aspects of Killian and like the other aspects of the Paladin, and particularly like what Killian can do. You know, and as he grows and levels up, he's going to have more things available to him. But I definitely like that the new versions of the rules allow for not just like that complete just dump everything into damage. It doesn't allow you to do that. But yeah, what about you, Melanie? What do you think about all this? How do you think you do with Seraphina in combat? Besides Killian making fun of her every time she misses stuff.
Epic
I
eye
know, which
rolls.
seems to be very often, I might say.
I'm surprised Killian's eyes aren't stuck in a constant roll.
His one eye is always rolling. You just don't
Yeah, I think the role play aspect that you guys are describing, think it starts with the character creation, right? I think it's part of the spells that you choose, the weapons that you choose. I know for Seraphina, I think this is a common thread amongst all of the players on the team, but for me, for Seraphina, what I did was all of her spells, except for Eldritch Blast, that's her only combat spell. I think every other spell is used more so in a social situation. And I tried to choose spells that aren't a min-max of a warlock. She's very, very far from that. I think I try to choose spells that I felt her character would choose. And I do try my best. There are some times when gross things happen, and I always fight the urge to take prestidigitation as my turn. I haven't yet, but every once in a while I am tempted to just use that as my turn and not take a combat.
You've established that that's what Seraphina's like instinct is. And as the DM, I have trouble making combat hard enough. Even when you all are being very good at not metagaming, even when you're all very good at not min-maxing, combat just, like, the balance system in D&D is not well done. So I have a hard time making combat hard enough. So anytime you want to throw away a turn, I'm not going to bitch about it.
Okay. I think I needed just that permission. I haven't
play
yet, but I thought about it so many times.
If there's one thing we can walk away with tonight, it's that we know that roleplay during combat can be as important as combat during combat.
Yeah, I feel like Seraphina failing at combat is part of her story. So I think for me it was important to try to fold that in as best as I could.
I think Seraphina going like ew 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 and like using prestidigitation, like that's a solid like 6 seconds, right? Like that's a good round of combat right there for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes way more sense than Seraphina being like, yeah, I land in this puddle of sewer slime and blast off 3 spells. That's not accurate. That doesn't seem like something she'd do.
She's gonna eventually turn into like the battle princess, where her dress is like in tatters, and she's got like mud on her face, and she's pow pow, Eldritch Blast.
Yeah, but we need growth to that point. Started from the bottom, and Seraphina's just cleaning her dress at this point. That's why she's with all these weirdos. They can handle all this stuff.
We got Zada. He'll jump in. It's fine.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Any other... Gosh, we've been here about an hour. Any other thoughts, feelings? All right. Well, I think that wraps up this episode of Casting Friendship.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dane, for popping by.
Yeah, anytime. Happy to be here. Happy to have you guys in my life.
Oh,
same. Heart hands.
That's so sweet.
I'm doing the Seraphina heart eyes emote. I feel blessed and only a little depressed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
We hope you reach completion.
However that may be. Bye.
Bye.